exciting day of learning. I'm happy to be here. Get ready to take some notes. I'm your host, Britt Waters, and welcome to another episode of 202 Creates Masterclass. Let's talk about 202 Creates. It's an initiative of the DC Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, led by our director, Angie M. Gates, for district creatives just like you. Today's conversation is with founder of Little Acre Flowers, Tobie Whitman. Tobie, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Your story is amazing. I can't wait to dive in. Tobie launched Little Acre Flowers after a career of working in the field of international women's empowerment. In 2010, she made a career shift and joined a high-end florist. Over time, it bothered her. The imported flowers, the waste, the flowers dying so quickly, which motivated her to create an alternative. She launched Little Acres Flowers. This determined, phenomenal woman lives out of Northwest DC with her husband, 2 sons, and a dog. Through Little Acre, you combined your passion for nature and desire to be socially and environmentally responsible while finding the best offerings for your clients. That's a success. You have to be really proud of yourself, Tobie.
Thank you. I mean, I love what I do, so that's a success for me. Absolutely.
Here at 202 Creates, we focus on creative entrepreneurs just like yourself. Tell us how flower design fits in the creative space.
Well, it is an art form. Absolutely. I think, we're working with really beautiful materials. So I think, we have it easy in a sense that, if you're using beautiful flowers, odds are your flower arrangement will look beautiful. But there's so many different styles. And I think as I was creating Little Acre, there's actually been a lot of style change in the floral field. And so I think we've been part of that, and that's been really exciting and something that we, as a business try to really stay on top of to expand kind of what our style looks like and keeping up with what other folks are doing in the industry.
That's amazing. I mean, flowers are beautiful on their own, but what is your vision when it comes to putting them together? Is it depend on what mood you're in? Are you inspired by things you see outside?
We're definitely inspired by what we see outside. Our arrangements are always very connected to the seasons. We only use locally grown flowers, so everything is coming from Maryland, Virginia, even DC in the summer, which is amazing. And they always reflect what is going on outside. So spring is here finally. So everything we're using is bright colors, lots of fragrance, looks cheerful, joyful. And those are the feelings that people have this time of year. And our flowers really convey that as well.
That is awesome to have every flower that you are giving out to be from the DMV area. That's amazing. It's like all my flowers are my neighbors.
Absolutely. And we feel that, I mean, the flowers are our neighbors, but the growers as well. We have wonderful relationships with the local grower community. And that, that's something that personally I find really gratifying, getting to know those individuals, getting to support those small businesses as well. So that's a really essential component to the business and what I enjoy so much about it too.
Tell me about how you fell in love with flowers. I see that your grandmother and your San Diego County upbringing contributed to it. When did you realize that, wow, this is something I really love?
Well, that's such a good question. Yes, my grandmother, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother growing up, and she was a flower lover. She was Dutch. And while I use only locally grown flowers, certainly appreciate the amazing flowers that are grown in Holland. That's one of the largest exporters of premium flowers in the world. And so my grandmother gardens, my mother gardens, and that was just kind of something that was always going on. My mother had amazing rose bushes. And so always thinking of her kind of pruning those. But I think a really transformative moment for me was, in terms of my career, was when I got married and thinking about the flowers for my own wedding. And I know a lot of brides can relate to this, but boy, did I have an amazing time thinking about the flowers for my wedding. And I developed a relationship with our florists that we used. And I just really loved the creative component, but also the business side of it, the proposals, how she was coming up with, figuring out the cost of all of what this beautiful thing was going to be. So I think that was really helpful for me to think, wow, this is this amazing beautiful, field that has these tangible business elements to it as well. And so I think marrying those two things is something that I really love about being in this field.
That's great. Not only do you love flowers, but you get to wake up and work in the flower business every day. People always say, quit your day job, follow your passion, but that takes a lot of bravery and planning and strength. Tell me about how you felt when you made that decision and any advice you can give to people who might be thinking about doing that too.
Yeah, so totally terrified. You're 100% right. I was making a big shift. Had invested a lot of time and money in my education, and it really was scary. I think advice that I often give is, I think making gradual shifts, I think, is really helpful. Folks, when they think about making a transition, they think, okay, I'm just going to give up everything I have and I'm just going to do a total 180 and do something different. And I think my experience was quite gradual, really over a couple of years, where I went down to part-time in the field in international relations and started working at a flower shop, and was actually doing that part-time and my kind of traditional career at the same time, for a while. And then kind of that allowed me to kind of flex my muscles a bit and really make the direct comparison on a day-to-day basis. Wow, I'm doing these two jobs. And it was very obvious to me that I was really getting a lot more enjoyment, from one over the other. And I think that's what really helped me to make that final transition to working full-time for the luxury florist that I mentioned. And then once making that shift, then going to start Little Acre. So there were definitely steps in the process. And I think I try to tell people that I think can be, a less scary way to do it than just like jumping off into your totally different career in one step.
Yes, don't dive in head first all the time, but let's talk about the nitty gritty. What was it like? How long were you in those phases where you're working multiple jobs, doing what pays the bills, working on your passion? Did you ever get sidetracked or think, I can't?
It definitely, multiple jobs, as many people understand, is very hard to balance, because there's just always, and being a parent as well. I had my first child during this as well. There's always a crisis somewhere, so it's hard to kind of manage that. But so I think that was helpful too for me to be like, wow, this is hard doing multiple things. It would be a lot easier to just be focused entirely on one thing. And so I think that was actually helpful, to kind of push me a little bit to go full time into flowers.
We're glad you did because you're very successful now and showing off so much of the beauty that DC has when it comes to floral design. People always talk about art in DC and they talk about music and painting. Do you feel like floral design really gets the attention and support it deserves? And how can we help make sure it does?
That's a great question. I think it is getting more attention. I think because, and it's a funny side effect of COVID actually, because I think a lot of people if they've been at home, working, they've been spending more time outside rather than, being in an office or, meeting friends outside, whatnot. They've just been exposed to, they're spending more time in nature. And I think that has translated to people being really, more interested in flowers. I think as well, because of COVID, not being able to gather, people have been sending flowers to one another to convey emotion, to say congratulations, to wish somebody a happy birthday if they can't be together. And so I think, we've actually, our business has been positively impacted by COVID, which I hate saying, because COVID has been so, awful. But there has been this silver lining for us in the sense that the flowers are a way for people to convey emotion. I think even as we, hopefully, get through COVID, that I think people will continue to connect with flowers and the artistry that makes them come to life.
Yeah, and you are such a positive light in times like this because it does put a smile on someone's faces. seeing some flowers and seeing that people are still thinking of them, even though we can't always gather together like we used to. Who most likely gets flowers? Because there's always this weird stigma that men don't like flowers. You get a lot of orders for men to get some flowers.
We do. I mean, I think I would say there is a lot of flower. There are a lot of flowers being sent women to women. I would say at this point, there's almost a new holiday, Galentine's Day, as you just celebrate your girlfriends or the women in your family. So that's kind of fun. People, birthdays, anniversaries. We definitely send men flowers. We also have plants. There are local greenhouses that grow plants. These orchids that are behind me actually come from a greenhouse nearby as well. Men love orchids too. Everybody loves nature. We are natural beings, and so I don't think flowers are just exclusively for women at all.
Yes. You gotta have something in the house if you can't get out and smell the flowers.
Exactly, exactly.
I'm curious of how things have changed going online. People think about this vision they have for their business and all these people coming in and smelling flowers and taking them home. But when you're stuck in the house, you have to order online. Tell me how you've made that shift.
So we were actually quite well positioned for that because we are almost exclusively a delivery service, which we had been before the pandemic. We had also been doing events, which that obviously stopped with the restrictions on gathering. So what we did do was expand upon our delivery business. So we offered, instead of having our weekend staff who used to do events, we transitioned them to offering delivery 7 days a week. So that was a big transition to be, wow, we're doing this all the time. But that's what customers wanted, and we were able to do it safely. We were doing contactless deliveries, leaving flowers on doorsteps wrapped, making a phone call to the recipient to let them know that they were there. But we had always been doing a lot of that. So I think there wasn't as much change in that as much as in kind of how we got the flowers to clients, as much as we had to just think about what kinds of safety precautions we were going to take for our staff who were creating the flowers, and how to kind of stagger our staffing so that we weren't too many people in the studio at one time, buying air purifiers, making sure, that anybody, any supplies or farmers who were coming to give us our flowers, we were just having those things be outside. Nobody was coming into the studio who didn't work here. It's very
You're
involved.
not just planting a flower and handing it out. This is a really big deal.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of details. I mean, I think there's so many things that go into making a flower arrangement under normal circumstances, and COVID just added several layers to that.
But you're definitely knowledgeable about everything that you have your hand in and educated as well. A BA from Harvard, a PhD from Cambridge. Congratulations. What type of advice would you give to people who are looking to start a business? How do they get educated? Is it a program? Is it school? Is it networking?
So I think all of those are great approaches, and I think for me, I think the two things were networking, but also just trying to get your hands into something. Trying to actually get real world experience. I think of that, that it's funny how it worked for me, that I had so many years of education in something that I no longer do, and I have almost no technical education in what I actually do now. I think I took one floral design class. I've never taken any business classes, but I went and worked at the very ground level, taking out trash and sweeping and just kind of absorbing everything going on at a flower shop in Woodley Park. And that's kind of how I got my experience. And so I think what advice I normally give to people who are interested in doing something different is do whatever you can do to actually start doing that thing. Don't necessarily, obviously, if it's something very technical, if you want to transition to be a doctor, yes, you need to go to medical school. But if you want to be, and in business too, especially small business, you don't need to be going to business school. you need to find some place to gain some experience. And I think just not being scared to do that. I think that is the quickest way to learn, and the quickest way for you to really figure out if this is something that you want to take further.
I'm sure you're determined with it because, I mean, when you talk about sweeping up the shop and taking out the trash, that's not the glamorous side. People always think they're going to start a business and immediately be in a three-piece suit telling people what to do.
Yeah. No, the first year of the business, I had no employees. I was just me doing absolutely everything, including our first Valentine's Day. I did absolutely everything. And then, now I have a great team, but it definitely is a progression. And so starting out, yeah, you need to work very hard. And build things a bit before you can bring other folks on board. But that's really fun too. And that's the way that you learn the entire business. So by me doing all of that in the beginning, like, I know all the ins and outs of delivery, I know all the ins and outs of purchasing. And even if I'm not doing all of those things anymore, I can still kind of manage those things or oversee them. I have an amazing general manager for the studio now. So I really don't play as much of an operational role as I once did, but I know all of the aspects of the business still, which is essential to overseeing things.
What a journey. Back in those days, how did you initially raise the capital needed to keep prospering?
So it really was a relatively small amount of money for a bit, to start a business. It was about $10,000 that I spent to start a website, and that's to get a really beautiful website. And that's really all that I did. And I was just extremely cheap about everything. So however scrappy you can be in the beginning to start things out, absolutely do that. I didn't actually have my own space when I started out. I was working inside of another florist shop. But on
Oh,
the web, it looked like I was, Little Acre Flowers. I talked about the team and this and that. And, the team was me. I was the delivery person. I was, all of those things. And so by doing that, I didn't actually pay, I paid, my rent was a small percentage of my sales. And so that was a great way to actually kind of keep, my costs relative to what I was taking in. And I was profitable very quickly. I think because I was able to keep my costs down. So I think finding that, I guess that's another piece of advice of, I'm definitely a person who does things gradually. So in the same way that I made the transition gradually, I think the business itself evolved gradually as well. So I didn't go out and sign some 5-year, commercial lease, like, not at all. I basically found a way to, have as small a rent as possible that was directly tied to what my income was, and that, I wasn't taking on any debt, and so that I wasn't putting myself in a vulnerable position.
having this conversation with you, I'm just realizing just how disciplined you have to be. Talk about some of those big lessons that you can share when it comes to being so disciplined and focused on what you're doing.
Oh, wow. Let me think. Discipline. I think just staying calm. I think starting a small business, everything's new, you're doing everything from scratch, and just kind of staying calm, putting one foot in front of the other, not getting overwhelmed. I think, you can think about the big picture, what your plans are for the year. We even had this, thinking of a year back to COVID, COVID hit, sales just totally plummeted in March, had no idea what was going to happen. Then sales start picking back up, and you just kind of take it by, day by day of, maybe week by week, but really not longer than that, because you just don't know. You just don't know what is going to happen, and you have to be comfortable with that. And that's definitely something that I struggle with. I like to know what's happening. And that, having that sense of control. I think in a small business, you gotta roll with it a little bit. But just putting one step in front of the other, looking at, what needs to happen in the short term and not getting overwhelmed, I think is the key to just moving forward. Just how else do you really do it?
Yeah. I mean, mental health is so important, especially at times like this. And when you say being calm, what are your tactics? Or the music that you listen to? Is it meditation, exercise?
Yes, all of that, and then flowers. So,
Really?
yeah, no, absolutely. I still pretty regularly bring flowers home, and I just know, frankly, if I'm even in a mood at home, and I will come into the studio just to be around all of this. I mean, it is really amazing. We are the local growing community. Really, are they're a phenomenal, and we just got really, really beautiful flowers. So being around that, smelling them, that is very calming. But yeah, I do try to exercise as regularly as I can. Yoga in particular is really great. Um, Being outside, getting some fresh air, just a little deep breathing. That does it for me usually.
I'm thinking of the times that are peak, like, of course, May, Mother's Day, but people use flowers for therapeutic purposes. So it can really be all the time. What is your life like during those peak moments in business?
Totally crazy. They're like marathons. We talk about we have a surge capacity. So our staff, we have full-time employees and then part-time, but during those holiday periods, it's all hands on deck. And so it is actually really fun because we're all together. And so people who don't might not necessarily overlap in the schedule, we're all together for days, long days on end. But it is, if you can do those holidays, you can do anything. And so we've actually had it didn't start out by design, but now we do. We often have new staff members join right before Valentine's Day because it's just such a quick, it's such an intense learning curve that if they can handle that, then we know it's going to work there. It's going to work out. Like if they like that experience, then they're going to thrive. If it's not a great fit, then we know that, because it is so intense, but it's fun too. I mean, we get so many flowers. That's like amazing to walk into the studio and just like literally like every inch is covered. We have a small space, so we really, we cram in like literally thousands of stems of flowers. It's like a clown car of flowers.
Wow, it seems like your team is really built for this. But let's talk about the people around you that aren't directly in your business,
Yeah.
your village that supports you. When it comes to small businesses, you really have to be the go-to for all of your friends, all of your family, and your extended circle. How
Great.
have you developed that relationship?
Well, I think one of the things is we just have such an amazing team itself at Little Acre. Like we all, just think so highly of one another, and I think everybody has different skills. And and my our general manager, Amber, we really try to cultivate. Everybody's individual passions so that we all there's things that you have to do, but then to the extent that there's wiggle room, trying to figure out what kinds of things light people up. So if it's somebody on staff who really likes teaching, okay, let's get them doing workshops. Or somebody who really likes doing big installations, let's get them more involved in events when events come back. But people who like connecting with farmers, let's get them involved in sourcing. So I think we've have this great community, our village really, of our staff, as we all kind of try to figure out what everybody else enjoys, and finding places for individuals. So I think that has been great. And our farming community as well, the growers, we are really tight with other florists in the local area. There's another 100% local florist in Baltimore, Ellen Frost at Local Color Flowers. She's been an amazing mentor to me. And whenever, when COVID happened, we were just like on email constantly of, what is happening? How are we going to get through this? What are you guys doing? So having other florists in the network too has been super, super helpful. Ellen in particular, she's my flower bud.
That's important to have. Somebody you can talk shop with is always great.
100%.
I'm thinking about the flowers that make you the happiest. Which one's your favorite? If you can have a favorite, you're surrounded by them all the time.
Yeah, no, I know that I get asked this, and you know, I love whatever is happening right now, usually.
Okay.
So, and I think so right now, spring flowers are amazing. Lots things with fragrance are, thing I really love. I have a very sensitive nose, so I can smell aromas and not good things as well pretty quickly. So I love, narcissus and hyacinth, a lot of
Oh, I
cherry.
love hyacinth. Oh my gosh.
We're really early spring, so those aren't really around too much anymore. But those just fill the room amazing with amazing scent. We're going to be getting into peony season really soon, which everybody loves those. They're beautiful. Ranunculus. I guess I kind of like round shapes, things that there's
You
always.
like it all, Tobie. You're naming everything. You like it all.
Oh yeah, no, I really do.
You talked about seeing potential in your team and where they can go, and of course, a gradual process. Do you know what's next, and can you share with us?
For us, wow. Yeah, let's see. I think we are really trying to figure out what events are going to look like in the COVID and the post COVID environment. We had launched an events business last January, 2 months before COVID hit, and totally stopped that. And so I think we're, trying to figure out what the demand is going to look like moving ahead, what our staff wants to be doing, what they're comfortable with, in terms of being, in spaces with lots of, with event guests. So I think we're trying to figure that piece out. I also, in my mind, always think about, we have one location now. It would be so exciting to have a second location. There certainly is demand for it. And I think that would be a really exciting thing for us to figure out in the near term as well. So stay tuned.
Will do. Thank you so much for joining us. I've taken mental notes in my head for my own business, and you've made me want like a house full of flowers. So like,
Perfect.
cross your fingers for my allergies. Where can we follow you and support you and continue to see your story?
Yeah, so we're at littleacreflowers.com. We've got, super, super straightforward ordering. All of our social handles are right there. We have a beautiful Instagram feed. So please check us out. Makes people happy all day long.
Thank you so much, Tobie. And thank you for all of you watching. I hope you learned just as much as me. You continue to support 202 Creates by sharing this. There's so many creatives out there who might have missed and want all of the gems that Tobie dropped today. So make sure you share this to your feed and join us for our next masterclass as well. Remember, 202 Creates celebrates, supports, promotes, and educates the district's creatives. So make sure you take advantage of all of our programming and resources at 202creates.com. Make sure you get outside to smell the roses, as they say. I'm Britt Waters. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.